All right, here we are. So actually, are we on yet? Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. It's about lunchtime, but we're going to be doing the Tai Chi Paradigm for Parkinson's, and I hope everyone's relaxed and ready to go. So this is one of the live classes we have. I know we have a pretty good following. We have a few hundred people that have been doing this, and they've been giving us some thumbs up, and wish everyone could share this with people, because YouTube is one of the places you can go to do the thumbs up and subscribing. And I think we have a very unique program that works with motor skill, balance, and so forth. And it's really something that we've been doing with all our students with the Tai Chi for prevention of age-related degeneration. But taking it a step forward, we want to actually understand how to move our body and control our appendages and learn to relax more. Okay. Yeah, so the announcement is that Take Time Thursday on May 28th, Thursday, it's going to be a discussion on the Tai Chi Paradigm and Parkinson's. We're going to be hosting that, and we're going to open it up to anybody that has questions, and we're going to answer those questions as well as have some group participation. We have a program set up for that day, and it's kind of a PowerPoint that Lucien has set up, and we're going to use that as our guideline. And I don't know if they have access to that earlier than that. Do they, Lucien? Yeah, so the Parkinson Foundation has that information. It's scheduled for 1 o'clock, May 28th. So you might keep that time open so that you could go to the Parkinson Foundation and access that. Or it's going to be, is it a Zoom format? Yeah, so it's going to be done on Zoom. So if you're not sure how to do that, or you have to get that on your device, you might want to do that ahead of time. And I'm sure maybe there's some support along the way to do that. Maybe through the Parkinson's Foundation, you can have someone that's good with the technical support that can help you with that, or someone at home can help you at least get the Zoom app, because you do need some of these things installed on your device so that when you connect, you know how to manage that. But if you're already doing Zoom type of things, then you're all set. And there could be some little technical issues, but hopefully we'll be able to do that next Thursday. It's actually the 28th at 1 o'clock, and that's going to probably supersede the class that we have at 12:30. So 12:30 is typically when we do the Parkinson's Foundation class. So we might start off a little earlier doing some of that, then fade into that. So we'll do that. We'll deal with that when the time comes. So meanwhile, we're going to be standing in the shoulder width stance, and we're going to turn. 1, 2, 3. Remember, we have to build some mobility in the body and learn how to turn and twist and learn to relax our body so that we can create movements in space. And that's really what we're doing. I talk a lot about twisting the waist, because a lot of us aren't used to turning our waist. It's something that it's neglected as part of how we should be moving. And it's not just people with, not just elderly people or people with Parkinson's. It's across the board that people start moving their torso or waist early on in their life. Okay, next, bending from side to side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is bending and tilting to one side, getting the body to get used to kind of shifting into a different position, but yet still not tip over. So we can stand like this and be pretty rigid and not actually move. But the thing is, when we start to move, we allow our body to respond to a position. And that's really what happens when we move. Why do we lose our balance? We lose our balance because we don't adjust and compensate for the different positions and forces that are acting on our position. So that's when we start to lose control of our center of mass or body form. Okay, so next we lift the hands up and reach down to stretch. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Center, inhale, exhale. Hands up, reach down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Center, inhale, exhale. Hands up, reach down. 1, 2, 3. Move to your right, move to your left. Back to center, lift up, inhale, exhale. Okay, shake that out. So stretching, a lot of times people, a lot of people don't like to stretch because for someone that's very tight, it's kind of painful. And if you're not very limber or you're not used to stretching, you get sore the next day. So you actually have to control the amount of stretch and the intensity of your stretch. But the main reason we're stretching or moving is to increase the range of motion, first of all. The second thing is when we go down, we want to let that muscle learn to release, because a muscle actually, when it feels that it's being stretched, it doesn't want you to compromise it. So the natural response is to tense. It doesn't want you to go beyond a certain point. That's a defensive mechanism that sometimes is ironically not good for you. You should actually learn to release during movement. So by releasing the tension here, it allows the muscle to relax more. And then by releasing tension here, it takes the tension out of your lower back. So the stretch there and the release here actually will allow better circulation to happen in the lower back, and it allows better circulation to go through the hamstrings and so forth. So the key to movement is relaxing, and the key to avoid tension is movement. So you have to kind of find out and balance how that works and how it feels. So this is really I think the most important part of what I teach is to get you to overcome the tension so you can create better movement. I always say the biggest conflict in movement is tension, and the idea is if you're like this, there's no movement. The only way to initiate the motion is let it go, and then you start to move. So if I hold my hands up, there's tension here. Something has to hold my arm up there because you're fighting gravity. So you let it go. So you learn to let it go, but you can't let things go 100% because then you destroy what the action's supposed to be. So you have to balance that idea of when to relax, when to tense, when to release, when to reach and stretch. So all of this is a learned process and develop an understanding in the motor skill. Now when we lift up and we release and go down, you also exhale. And when you exhale, you're letting this part of it relax to accommodate the breath. Okay, so when we inhale and exhale, we're allowing the innards, your sort of the ribs and the bones in this area to relax and expand, because there's still musculature here. We don't talk so much about these muscles because they're not the ones that we feel are the ones that we're driving or the primary movers that move our arms like this. So this just happens as a natural course of breathing. So if we breathe correctly and we relax here, our breath is going to be much fuller. So that's why we want to get all of these muscles responding to the expansion and contraction of our bodies, breath and movement. And at the same time, we're coordinating our bodies so it kind of synchronizes. So this is something I think is very important to avoid, the tension or the stiffness that some of the Parkinson's people get. Not everybody is like that, but the thing is, it's unique. So you have, the tense issues, then you should try to understand how try to avoid that tension by practicing your deep breathing, practicing expanding and contrast. So we're doing all of these exercises all the time. So with that said, we're going to open up. Okay, let's do the waist rotation first. So this is actually creating a circle. And here again, movement is essential. So movement avoids that state of tension that we're trying to avoid. So we're just making circles. It takes a bit of coordination because there's a tensing and a relaxing and a tensing and a relaxing. That's how we create movement. We create it by manipulation of skeletal structure, that's what I call it, and the timing and control of what muscles contract and what muscles release. So that's what a motor skill is. You're really controlling the mechanism that provides the signaling for a movement. And then, as part of this practice, you get a feedback, and it tells you where your body is in reference to where everything else is. And that's really how we control our center of mass. If you don't allow that to happen as a course of this practice, then you're going to get stiff, and then you're not going to be very mobile. So we're making just circles, and it allows the hips, the ankles, everything to kind of blend together to compensate for what's happening during this subtle shifting of weight. Okay, now we're going to cross the forms. So we have not only movement, but we have positions that end up. So this is not a Tai Chi posture, but it is a posture for this exercise. So we're building some understanding of body form and position. So here we're making circles with our knees. So we're letting the joints and the ligaments and the tendons and the connective tissue, everything that's involved with the joint, to accommodate the movement. And it allows the joint to relax. It keeps the ligaments and tendons working so there's not a conflict in the motion. I like to use that term conflict because anything that's conflicting is going to not allow things to happen naturally or correctly. Okay, next we're going to stand up and we're going to work the neck. A lot of tension up in this area, so we move it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now we're going to go backwards and forwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now we're going to tilt to the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. And then center, bend down, circular movements. Reverse. And center. Hands up. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay, so those are some of the um, basic movements that allow us to build some flexibility here. Now we're going to actually develop some coordination where we're going to do this. So this is a circular movement like this. So it's just a pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So just look at your hands. It's kind of like clockwork. They're just moving like in the dial of a clock. One's going clockwise, one's going counterclockwise. And then you kind of try to work it with your knees. So we work the knees to let our body feel like it can settle. So it's not the same as bending, although you're bending, folding, and let gravity work with the movement that's taking you down. So what's taking you down is your body weight and gravity. So you just regulate the speed of that movement and then reverse. Okay, so we see there is a relationship between the elbows and the knees, and if they're working correctly, it feels like it's coordinated. This is another avoidance of conflict and movement, that if the hands don't work with the legs, there isn't the relationship that we're trying to build. Okay, so that's that. Now, that's actually working the front of the body and your back because you have the up and down movement. When we turn like this, we spread our feet a little bit, we turn like this, we're building right and left movement, and you relax the shoulders. So this is the same as this, but here we're just letting go with the arms, and the shoulders relax. Okay. So that just gives you an idea that the body does turn like this, and it does go up and down like this. Now we're going to take that same circle and go up. So this is side to side, side to side. So we're going 1, 2, 3. Increase range of motion, relax the shoulder. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. So that's a big circle. It's as if this is the center of the circle, and you go around. Okay. The important thing is relax the shoulder, because if it's tight, it's not going to make it around. So that's something. Take it slow, and don't overwork the shoulder. Okay, and it should track here. It's not out here. Out here, it's going to be conflicting in motion, because out here it takes something to hold your arms out there. So that's not going to be the same as when you're in here, because you're tracking in the vertical line. Out here, the vertical line is out there, but to get there, this has to be your arm, and that actually becomes tension here, and that actually will be a conflict in your motion. That actually be a conflict in your motion, because out here there's tension in the arms. So that's, just for more understanding about when we do our movements, that we have no resistance and we're not fighting or forcing the movement. Okay, now, once we're in this position, we did this and we did this. Now we have this movement. So this is forward and back, right? So you press and release, press and release, exhale, inhale. So this is fairly simple. It's really just like walking, swinging your arms. In walking, we're like this. in this exercise, we're like this. So these are moving together as a pair simultaneously, right? So this movement, you exhale, inhale, breathe through your nose, tongue touching the roof of your mouth. Exhale, inhale. And center. Okay, hands up, deep breathing. Inhale, exhale. This is your deep breathing exercise. Okay, so that's front to back. This is side to side. That kind of gives you the idea that everything we're doing is in a relative space. So what is the relative space? We're dealing with a space in front of us 45 degrees to that corner, and if we turn to this side, turn to this side, we have a relative space. So this is getting our body to understand more about spatial awareness, proprioception, where our body is in with the realm of our space, because that's the most important part of these exercises, is to develop more consciousness of position, mindfulness of the body, and direction. Because ultimately, why do we want to have better balance? Why do we want to have a certain mobility, a certain coordination in how we move around? Because the only reason why we do these things as far as direction and movement is because there's functionality. The only purpose of it is to get to point A to point B. We need to move from one place to another, throughout the day. You move in your home from one room to the other. You go to your car, you get into your car, and you go to do shopping or whatever you have to do. It's really about getting to the place as efficiently as possible. But if you have trouble, moving, then you have to practice this as a skill, build the understanding of how we do this, and then apply that to your daily needs. So when we're standing, now we're building some understanding of footwork. When we're standing like this, we have a 90-degree position here. So we have our two hips. If we flare our feet out like that, we open up to a 90-degree position. And if you're very stiff here, this is what would happen. When you open, you're going to feel unstable because there's a conflict. Your muscles start to become a little tight. So we have to work it slowly. And if you have trouble getting in this position, use a counter to stabilize yourself and then try to find that position. Okay? And then if you're using a counter or a chair, regardless, that's sort of your apparatus that you're using as support. And we kick our heel out like this and we turn. And you go forward and back. And we turn back to center. You can switch your hands. So you can imagine that I have a chair in front of me, and what I'm doing is I'm learning to shift forward and back. Okay. Now, if you don't need the chair, you put your hands on your hips, and you turn, go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So that's a basic format to go from this position to this position and back, to go from a triangle to a square. Here's your triangle, one side at a time. So you look down, you can imagine it. So when you look down, you notice the body has to shift like this. Otherwise, you would tip over. And you have to be fairly stiff to do that, to hold you from tipping over, because you're compensating for the force that's acting on you, which is your body weight. And where's the force? When you go like this, gravity is acting on your body. Your upper body becomes heavy because you came out of the vertical line, and you begin to feel like you're tipping over. So that's the number one mistake for fall prevention, that you don't want to lean forward and you don't want to look at the floor. Because the first thing that happens if you're a little bit rigid is that your body's not going to be able to control that force that's acting on you, which is gravity, and going to take you down, right? If you're standing like this and you have your spine vertical and straight and tucked in here, you won't feel like you're going forward because you're not. And the other thing is, if I were to look at my feet at this place to see if I'm in a triangle, I have to push my butt out, and now I feel balanced and I can look at my feet. Now if I take my eyes off, my body has to come back to this erect position. So between this and this is part of maneuvering our body, controlling that motion. So we control that movement. It's sort of like bowing, and it's kind of allowing your body to do this, to develop that feeling of sensitivity. So the body compensates, and you start to do that. So we're doing that here, but we also do that when we stretch. See, when we do that first bend over, the third exercise, we're already learning how to do that. Because the same thing would happen if we did the stretch without letting the back butt go out, you would tip over. So the first line of not falling forward is to compensate for the body position by staying more erect, more vertical. And then when we're in this position, regardless of you're holding a chair or you have your hands on your hips, and we're in this square position, we shift the weight, pivot, and we turn to this direction. So that's how we get over here. We go 1, 2. Now we're over here. We want to alternate the knees as the mechanism in the Tai Chi stances, because it's shifting of weight. Everything we're talking about is shifting of weight and maneuvering our feet, because that's one of the big obstacles that we have, is how do we walk better, how do we stay balanced, how do we stay mobile and relax in a position. So we work the lower half. So we alternate the knees one at a time. And that relationship between the give and the take of the two knees becomes part of this training. So when you turn and kick your heel out and you end up on this side and you go forward and back and forward and back. So there's a relationship forward and back. And then we pivot back to square one and to here. Now, this is called the Tai Chi Paradigm. It's a training exercise. Now, in Tai Chi, we have this, and we format it so that it's done. And, every reason for doing what we're doing has different objectives and goals. So people are learning Tai Chi. All of it is about balance and stability and building strength and flexibility. But aside from that, it could branch out into different goals and objectives. One of it is to build aesthetics of movement. Some people do Tai Chi for competition. Some people do it for a number of different reasons, as a martial art, for self-defense. So in the Parkinson's group, I work off of the same ideas, same exercises, but the objectives are a little bit different. More about relaxation, more about centering, more about avoidance of falls. How do we prevent that? And mobility. How do we walk better? How do we move our body so that there's a better balance and compensation of movements where we have, all of these things working together? So all this stuff that I'm doing is really focusing on what this is as a motor skill and a type of coordination. It's amazing, throughout the years of in my own practice, what I've discovered in the body's balance and mechanisms that has to happen as a course of just becoming insightful. So there's a lot of discovery on my side of it because, it's really why I do it, and why I've spent so much time, because I really want to see ultimately what has to happen to the body. So all this information is what I use to support training people with Parkinson's, or people who want to maybe prevent the progression. So all of these actually is a great support tool to understanding, because the more you understand about movement and motor skill and why we have to do things a certain way, the more able the better your ability to cope with situations, because now you become much more astute. It's clearer to you, and you can start to practice the way you're supposed to, which is integration of your body and limb, work your lower half of your body, and relax the upper half of your body, so that you're more stable in the base and not as rigid up top, which causes top heaviness. So that's another way to avoid falls, because if you're top heavy, then what happens? You topple. It's like an upside down triangle. You're bigger on top, it's going to topple if you don't have the right support. So you want to change that so that the base becomes bigger and the top becomes smaller, but not on a physical sense, but sort of on this metaphysical sense, where your body becomes light from lack of tension. So, it's a concept, an idea that if you understand it, you'll begin to realize a lot of this makes sense. So when we shift our weight, we're really learning to find our center. So that's what we're doing here. Okay, when we move, we shift, and then it comes over. We shift, and it comes over. So this is a bigger shift where you're moving over like this, and this is actually what everybody has to do to get your weight over that leg. So most of the time, when you have trouble standing on one leg, it's because you don't have enough weight over that foot. Now, if you pick your foot up, how much weight do you have on this leg? How much of your body weight do you have on that foot? Is it 80% of your weight? 90% of your weight? 10% of your weight? What do you think it is? For those of you who think it's 100% of your weight, you're right, because if you didn't have 100% of your weight on there, you wouldn't be able to pick up this foot. Now, if I go like this, now it's not 100%. It's kind of moving across. It could be, now it's hard to measure, but as you move it closer to you, it approaches 100%. And then this is 0. So we think of 0 to 100, and then down again. So there's gradations of weight bearing from 0 to 100 and everything in between. So a minute shift would be 49-51. In general, it would be in certain stances and positions, it could be 80-20, 90-10, depending. Like if we're in this empty stance like this, it could be 90-10, or pick it up to here, 0 to 100, or you get back to here. And as you shift forward, it starts to empty from whatever weight you had. If it was 100, it starts to diminish, and then it starts to fill the other side. This goes partially there, 100%, and then 0, and it continues to transition. So that's what happens when we walk, when we step. You actually go from 0 to 100, 0 to 100. Because if you didn't walk like that, you'd have some baggage on the back leg, and what happens, it takes you in the wrong direction weight-wise, and if you're not used to capturing your weight on that side, you could end up misstepping or tripping or whatever else that gets in the way because you added a variable. The variable could be a crack in the street. It could be a little step that's only, an eighth of an inch tall or a quarter of an inch tall. that could cause you to trip and stumble. And if you stumble here and then you don't control it, you're going to end up falling down and tripping. But that's what I just did here in tripping. Actually, I'm still in control because my legs ended up relaxing. But the thing is, most people, when they do this, they lock out, and then this becomes stiff, and then you become top-heavy, and then you end up reaching down, to the ground. And if you're not strong enough to sustain the force of that impact, then you're going to end up hitting your face or breaking one of the bones up in here because your arm got stiff. So these are just examples that you can imagine when I speak of the ideas that's happening, or visualize and imagine what that actually would look like during a fall. Okay, so when we shift the weight and move like this, we're talking back to 0 and 100. That's how we hold this position. Now we're going to do this. 1, shift. Now we have an up and down movement. And this is going to help us balance and correct the skeleton so that when we shift over, we want the skeletal structure to stack vertically upward. Because if you don't do this, you're going to be unstable. So what is that? That's really muscular control of a position, and you're going up slowly. So this leg, the supporting leg, actually straightens. You want that to straighten, to align the lower part of your body so it stacks. So when you stack something, it takes the least amount of force to keep you stable in a vertical position. You can stack a lot of things. It's like taking, like there's games. You stack these things. As long as you keep it balanced, it's going to be stable and doesn't take much strength. Once one piece is off center, then it creates lateral forces. So if you go up into a vertical position, you add any lateral forces to this movement, you're going to become unstable. But here's the big difference. We have a response mechanism. So when we go up in a position and we start to jostle, it's our body responding through minute contractions in the body to allow us to know how to kind of overcome that. But that overcoming, that compensation, when it becomes excessive, then it no longer has stability. It's sort of like an earthquake in a tall building. Once it starts to vibrate, it's okay until the forces become too much, and then the structure can no longer sustain it, and then eventually it starts to topple, and it starts to topple from the top because it becomes heavy, and then the bottom, if it's not strong enough, will start to give way. So a building will collapse once it's unstable. So you can imagine the human body will do the same thing. But the thing is, with the human body, we respond. Well, we have a mechanism because we're alive. It's different from a building, because once in motion, it's going to stay in motion. With the human body, once in motion, we can stop it because we have a mechanism that can do that. So this is what we're doing. We're training our body to overcome some of these forces that are acting on, to respond to it. So how long does that take? Well, everyone's a little bit different, depends how severe your condition is. But the other thing is, the more you practice it, the better you get, because it's a constant building. If you don't build these responses and you do it once a week or once every 2 weeks, nothing happens. So the important thing is that the frequency of practice is going to make the big difference. It's not that you have to practice hours and hours a day. What you need to do is practice it every day. Because it's not so physical that you're going to be, if you're training and you're doing exercise that requires breaks between days so your body rebuilds and recovers because you've damaged some tissue, or maybe there's some microscopic tears in your muscles, then you have to let them heal. You don't need to do that with this, because we're not dealing with that kind of training. We're dealing with our sensory system and our motor skill and what goes on up here. because our brain is the controlling factor with the information that I'm sharing with you, so that you can take these ideas and embody it. Once you have these ideas embodied, then it's a matter of your system on a cellular level to kind of rebuild everything so that you become much more in tune and efficient with it. So it's really it's an education for the body, because what we're trying to do is make our body much more intelligent than it typically is. So that's kind of the theory behind this approach. And I think if you practice these movements, you're going to find yourself improving a lot. So here's another thing. But it does take time. Swinging the arms. Okay. We did this as this. Both hands are like this. When we walk, we actually need to do this. Okay. I'm exaggerating this. You don't, because that's a pretty big step. The bigger your arms are in a swing, the bigger the step. So we're not really stepping like that. It's more natural to do it like this. But your hands should be like this, opposite in motion, right? So if my foot goes back and my foot goes forward and it goes back, that's the relationship. Okay? So you see that. You have to watch this, and you have to imagine what the movement is, and imagine yourself in that same situation. So if I take a step, I'm doing this. Okay. If I take a step, I'm doing this. So if you have trouble, you just have to practice taking that initial step. Because once you're in motion, then the other side is just going to track as a coordination. That's the natural motion. That's what you should practice, because you want to understand what the natural motion feels like, and also dial that in up here so you understand that this is what we're doing. Because when we're learning something like this, the first thing is you think about it. Well, he said this side and this side has to go together. So you think about that until after doing this a number of times, and I only use a number as an X factor because I don't know how many times you're going to do this, so it could be varying with different people. So that's your first step. Here's your second step, and here's your third step. Now, if you go backwards, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you would build some of that coordination. But that exercise actually becomes this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I don't take that second step, because what I'm trying to build here is control of my center and be able to walk lightly and be able to take that step before I put weight on it. You see, so that's there's method to that madness. And this exercise, actually, when you get good enough to do this, then you can take it and just do this. So now that third version of doing that movement now becomes an integration of body, and your arms are moving like a pendulum, and you develop response, compensating for the action that's happening between, because your body has to learn to react and respond based on what's going on here. Okay, so let's do this on this side now. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, and then if we were to swing, it would be like that. So there's 3 different versions or 3 different stages of this development that if you practice it over time, you're going to start to begin to get the body to build it as a natural course of these events. So that's forward and back. Now, if we go side to side like this, the arms actually, because a lot of things we do are side to side, or the hands end up to the side, like a deep breathing. But here we compensate for this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that just gives you the idea of the counterbalancing of a position to move. Okay. So, you think to yourself, when do I ever do that? Why would I ever need to do that? So earlier I mentioned functionality and a reason to do something to get to point A to point B. So why would I do that? Well, if you were to reach over to get something and you didn't compensate for that position, you'd probably tip over. If I just went like that, I would tip over. So that's really reaching, so it becomes excessive. You don't want to reach so far that you start to fall over. So what you do is you compensate for the position. Now you feel balanced, because when this is here, there's a center line here. And then if I bring it back, it's like that. So your body can respond to that position if you're looking for building that sensitivity to balance and posture. So when I'm like this, there's really no effort here, and there's very little effort here. It's just enough to hold that out. So where's the effort here? The effort here is stacking your body in a vertical position. So when I go like that and my body is stacked, it takes very little effort to do that. What effort is required is that your musculature is relaxed enough to find the position to keep that part of your body in a vertical position. So if your body is tense and you go like that, then it doesn't want to move. So you have to let the body release, relax, and then compensate for the position. So that's where conflict and movement comes in. Conflict and movement created by tension. So we have to get rid of that tension in the body by learning how to move. So when I say movement is essential to life and why you have to move and why it's efficient to move methodically like we're doing, is because we learn to make our body more intelligent. It doesn't know how to do that because outside of this training tool that I'm using to heighten your understanding, everything actually creates a lot of tension in your body. Stress creates tension. Bodybuilding creates tension. Lifting creates tension. Everything is stabilizing your body because of tension. But that's not the tension that's good. That's really tension and conflict. So what we need to do is learn to tense enough to create movement, and then over time, your body has a better response. So that's really a reflex. So that's something that if we understand that, we have building blocks to go in a direction to prevent the progression of how the body is normally responding, because otherwise you have no tools. You don't have anything to use to fight that, to compensate for it. So we have to have some method. So the method to this is the ideas that we take and extract from the training of Tai Chi, principles and concepts. So this is something I think is very valuable. And we go out to here, and we come back in here, and we go out to here, and come back here. So that does take time, and you're just stepping out. You only have to do it about a dozen times. You don't have to do hundreds and thousands of these a day. And the reason, if you did 100,000 of these a day, you probably won't be able to get up tomorrow because your body overworked. So we do a little bit each day, 10 or 12 of these exercises, and then you build over time. And we're doing a lot of different exercises that really work the muscle groups in the body. So we're not overtaxing the right arm. We're not overtaxing the left arm or the right leg or the left leg. We're not overtaxing anything because what we're doing is developing natural motion with balance in concept, the yin and yang of everything that we do. Next, we're going to do the silk reeling. So this really requires a little bit more attention, takes more coordination, and it seems so fluid and smooth because the body knows how to go through the actions without tension. Now, you can't do this if you're tense. You have to let it go. So where are the positions? We first sit back and form this. Then we go forward and separate the hands. That's all it is. Between here and here are these two positions. But how do you connect this position, these two positions, to make it fluid enough to get back to square one and end up in square two or position two? 1, 2, we're here. 3, 4, we're here. So when we shift the weight and when we spread the hands, makes a difference. What is that? That's timing. In order for our body to be synchronized, we have to build timing in the body. So timing is a mechanism that actually happens as a course of everything that we do. Timing is a mechanism in movement and synchronization and coordination. Anything that we do that's refined works off of timing. No difference than, when you're cooking and you're baking, it's all tied to timing, right? How much time? It's relative to, say, temperature. So in here, how much time is really tied to the relationship of how our hands are moving. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're here, and back. This is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So what's the timing of the hands in relationship to the legs is really forward and back in the legs, together and open, together and open. So that relationship has to be built in. And then 1 and 2 is a relationship relative to this space and that space. So on this side, we have the back position and the forward position. We have the forward position and the back position. And then we have the front and the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So everything is a relative position dealing with timing and space. So when we speak of building body intelligence, your body begins to recognize what has to happen when and how in which space. So the relevance of the position really is tied to the timing between forward, back, and front and side. Right? So all of these things have to come into play. I mean, for someone just starting out, it's a lot to digest, but the more you see it, the more you do it, the more sense it starts to make. Okay, next, we're going to cross our arms and open. Cross and open. Cross and open. So a lot of these things, all our movements actually work within the realm of crossing and opening, closing and opening. So you get your body expanding, contracting, just like deep breathing. Closing, inhale, exhale, and down. So when we do this, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with this, the torso. Because when we breathe in, we expand. When we breathe out, you settle and sink and collapse. So everything fills and then empties, right? So that doesn't happen if this is very stiff and rigid. Your breath is going to be shallow if you don't release here. And if you don't breathe with this, the fullness and the depth of the breath is going to be not as full. So you don't expand your diaphragm. You don't let your body build that. So what happens is you don't get enough air, you don't get enough oxygen, and things happen. Now that's if your lungs are healthy and so forth. We know with this corona thing that it damages the tissue and the alveolar, the exchange of those of the oxygen doesn't happen. So you can't live without oxygen. So we need to work our breathing apparatus, which is I call this area. So when we expand and exhale, you get a better breath, a fuller breath, and more oxygenation to the blood, and also the air and blood that you need that goes to the brain. Now, everything that we're doing really builds circulation in the body, which is blood, nutrients, and all of this has to happen through gentle motion. We need to move and move and move, and mainly to create that complete circulation that the body needs to maintain and to be healthy. So that's open and close. Now we're going to go like this. We did this earlier with 2 circles. Okay, now I'm going to go from side to side, changing the timing. So remember the term timing, how important that is. So when I go like this, I'm like this. I go like this and like this. Now when I go like this, watch this hand. This is my vertical hand. You see it's just 1 circle. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to move my weight over until I'm here. Then I'm going to shift and move my leg over and then here. I'm going to make a circle. 1, 2. So this is called cloud hands, upper body. This is sidestepping with the cloud hands to learn to shift the weight, find your center, and move this weight over to your center. So this is a leg that's free, goes out and in, out and in. Now if I stabilize this side now, then I move to the side. So that's a breakdown of how we step. In the cloud hands as a relationship. Now we walk forward and back before. We went like this. 1, 2, 3. That's right, left, right. Left, right, left. Now our hands are moving like this. Okay? This is something else we can do when we move 1, 2, 3. This is clockwise rotation, counterclockwise rotation. So it's right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. So you can see all of those types of footwork, whether it's moving to the side or moving forward or forward. Are actions that are complementary but yet independent from each other. You have an upper body and you have a lower body. The lower body essentially is doing either forward movement, a backward movement, or a side movement. And we're moving to the side. So that gives you an idea that what we direct here and what direct here can be split up into different relationships, and you build compensation, and the idea that your body learns to move in different directions, but it has to be a natural synchronization, a natural action that has to be understood by the body, because that relationship has the upper-lower coordination, and it has the directions of right and left, forward and back, and actually some up and down. So that all of that stuff is supported to help build understanding of body mechanics in walking and maintaining stability in your balance. So hopefully this was helpful to you. Stay tuned. As I mentioned, May 28th, we have that 1 o'clock meetup with the Parkinson's Foundation. Review this. There's a lot of information I just went over. Go to YouTube. Even though you might be logging in at the Parkinson's Foundation, go to YouTube. There's more videos on that you might be watching as an interest to support what you're learning in this class. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe, because that's really going to help us with our membership and support for the YouTube channel. See you next time. I'll see you on Thursday. Practice up a little bit.